Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to plunge into some complex ideas and hopefully pull out the insights you need to understand the world a bit more clearly.
That's the goal.
So today, we've got something pretty special. It's the foundational framework for an entire university course. Think philosophy, geopolitics, economics, history, all woven together.
Right, and the central thread really is trying to get at how power actually works, not just the surface stuff.
Exactly. And we're going to hit some, well, pretty mind-bending questions right off the bat, like how much reality do we even perceive? Is the history we know the whole story?
Or just a story.
Good point. And how does something like money, something we use every day, reveal these hidden dynamics of power? It's designed to give you a new toolkit for seeing things.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to echo that, this deep dive, like the course it's based on, isn't about telling you what to think. Not at all. It's much more about offering tools for how to think. Connecting ideas, seeing the world more analytically, getting a deeper understanding of the forces shaping everything.
Okay, so let's kick things off with this philosophical foundation because it really sets the stage. Our source material starts with Immanuel Kant.
Ah, Kant. Yes.
And his ideas, well, they're revolutionary, frankly. He basically argues we can never truly know objective reality, what he called the noumena.
The thing in itself.
Right. The world as it exists, completely independent of our minds, our senses, we just can't access it directly.
Instead, what we get is the world as it appears to us, filtered through our senses, structured by our minds. He called this phenomena.
So it's like we're all wearing these, I don't know, mental glasses that shape everything.
That's a good way to put it. And it's not just a passive filter. Kant went further. He argued that fundamental things like time and space.
And we think are just out there.
Exactly. He said they aren't external realities we discover. They're actually innate structures within our minds, frameworks we impose to make sense of perception.
Wow, okay. So time and space are tools our brain uses, not features of the universe itself.
According to Kant, yes, they're part of the glasses. And things like cause and effect, too. Our mind links events that way. It's not necessarily inherent in the noumena.
So what does that actually mean for us day to day?
Well, think about it. If time and space are mental constructs, then reality, for us, the reality we experience, is fundamentally what we imagine it to be.
Life is an act of imagination.
In a very real sense, yes. Our minds aren't just recording, they're constantly, actively building the world we perceive. It's a continuous construction project.
That definitely shifts your perspective.
It does.
And our source material connects this directly back to the course's main goal, right? Which is?
To expand our imagination. The idea is, if you understand that reality is constructed, you can start to see how it's constructed.
And who might be doing the constructing?
Precisely. Especially when it comes to power. It helps you see the hidden levers, the underlying structures, maybe peel back some of that conditioning.
Okay, so we have this Kantian lens, reality is shaped by our minds. How does the course then use that?
Well, it takes that foundation and applies it across the board. The ambition is to analyze the past, the present, and the future using this understanding.
Let's start with the present. What does that look like?
For the present, it's about tackling geopolitics. Why do wars happen? What's really going on in places like Ukraine or the Middle East beneath the headlines?
Okay.
The goal is to build analytical models, not just describing events, but actually explaining the dynamics the power plays involved.
And these models aren't just for looking back.
No, definitely not. They're then used for the future part. Testing predictions. If we understand the power dynamics, can we forecast likely outcomes? Economic shifts, political moves.
Sort of like stress testing the model.
Exactly. If your predictions based on the model start panning out in the real world, it suggests your understanding of how things work, how power operates, is pretty solid. It's about building robust frameworks.
Okay, that makes sense. But then there's the past. And this is where, for me, it gets really provocative. The source talks about uncovering the secret history of humanity. What's that about?
Yeah, this is a big one. It's a pretty bold claim.
Yeah.
The source essentially argues that the history we're usually taught, in schools and textbooks, isn't always the complete picture. It can be, manipulated.
Manipulated how? By who?
By powerful people, powerful groups. Think about it. Who decides what gets included in the history books? What events are emphasized, which are downplayed, which perspectives are centered?
Right. The narrative can serve certain interests.
Precisely. Maybe the story of how an economic system developed or the real reasons behind a war gets spun in a way that legitimizes the current power structure. It obscures how power was really gained or kept.
So the project isn't just learning dates and names.
No, it's about understanding how power shapes the story we're told about the past. And the source argues that understanding this manipulation is actually key to achieving genuine freedom from those influences. It's a real aha moment when you start looking at history that way.
That's a heavy thought. Okay, so if reality is constructed, history is potentially manipulated. How does this apply to something concrete? You mentioned money earlier.
Yes. Money is the first big example the source uses to illustrate these hidden workings of power. It's brilliant, actually.
How so?
It starts with a thought experiment, and let's walk through it because it really highlights the gap between perception and reality.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's get the listener involved, too. Imagine you have, say, $5 million.
Nice round number.
You deposit it in a bank. They promise you maybe 1% interest.
Yeah.
Seems safe,
Yeah,
straightforward. Now, the banker, being enterprising, wants to lend that money out. Maybe to someone starting a restaurant. They charge the restaurant owner, let's say, 10% interest.
Makes sense. That's how banks make money, right? The interest spread.
Right. But here's the question. If the bank lends out all of your $5 million to the restaurant project, how much of your original deposit is actually in the bank?
Well, on the surface, you'd think zero. It's been lent out. It's now with the restaurant owner who's paying builders, suppliers.
Exactly. The money moved. But then some people might think, fractional reserve banking.
Right, the textbook concept. Banks have to keep a fraction, maybe 10%, in reserve. So they could only lend out, what, $4.5 million of your five, leaving $500K in the vault.
That's the common understanding. But is that what really happens?
Well, this is where our sources drop the bombshell. The reality, they argue, is fundamentally different. Banks, in effect, create money out of thin air.
Whoa, okay, unpack that. Create money. Like printing presses.
Not physical cash, usually.
Yeah.
Digital money. Credit. When the bank approves that $5 million loan for the restaurant, they don't typically take it from your existing deposit.
They don't.
No. They essentially just type numbers into the restaurant owner's account. They create a brand new $5 million deposit for the borrower. Poof. New money exists that didn't exist a second before.
That's hard to wrap your head around. So the bank doesn't need my deposit first.
The deposit helps with their overall regulatory position and liquidity, but the act of lending itself creates new money. When the bank makes the loan, it records the loan as an asset.
Okay, the restaurant owes them money.
Right. And simultaneously, it records the new deposit in the restaurant owner's account as a liability.
They owe the restaurant owner that money on demand.
Exactly. Assets and liabilities both increase by $5 million. Your original $5 million deposit, that's still recorded as a liability to you. The bank didn't move your money, it created new money.
So the total amount of money in the system just went up by $5 million.
Precisely. And then that new money gets spent by the restaurant owner, becoming deposits in other people's accounts, which can then form the basis for more lending by other banks. It's a multiplier effect, all originating from that initial creation of credit.
The source material gave that example of Chinese banks, right? Becoming the world's largest.
Yeah, that's a powerful illustration. Over the last couple of decades, their growth wasn't primarily funded by citizens suddenly saving trillions more.
It was the lending.
It was largely fueled by the banks creating vast sums of money as loans for huge infrastructure projects. Skyscrapers, railways, roads.
The money was created to build things, not saved up before building things.
That's the core insight. Banks aren't just passive intermediaries storing and lending existing money. They are active generators of new money, new wealth, through the very act of issuing loans.
That completely changes how you view the financial system.
It really does. It moves money from being just a thing we exchange to something that's, well, conjured by the system itself, based on creditworthiness and ultimately belief.
So where did this system even come from? Historically, how did we get here? This must tie into that secret history idea.
Absolutely. The origins, according to the sources, are actually quite practical, starting with merchants centuries ago.
Not governments or kings.
Initially, merchants needed safer ways to trade. Gold was the standard, but carrying it was risky and cumbersome.
Right. Heavy, easily stolen.
So, trusted merchants, or goldsmiths, started acting like early bankers. People would deposit their gold with them for safekeeping.
And get what in return?
A paper receipt, a claim check for their gold, like I owe you this much gold.
Okay, makes sense.
But then these receipts started circulating as if they were money. It was much easier to pay someone with a receipt than to go get the gold and hand it over.
The paper becomes the stand-in.
Exactly. Trade gets easier faster. But here's the crucial step, the turning point.
Let me guess. The bankers realized something.
They realized they didn't need to just hold the gold. They could issue more receipts as loans than the actual gold they had in the vault.
Because not everyone would demand their gold back at the same time.
Precisely. So if they had, say, $5 million in gold deposits, they could confidently lend out maybe another $5 million in new receipts, functioning as money.
Doubling the effective money supply.
In essence, yes. You've got the $5 million in gold plus $5 million in circulating receipts that people accept as value. Suddenly, there's $10 million in claims, chasing the same $5 million of gold. That was the beginning of creating money beyond physical reserves.
And that's where the deeper problem the source mentioned comes in.
That's it. In small, trusted circles, maybe it worked fine. But as these receipts, this symbolic money, spread wider and wider.
Became accepted by strangers.
Right. The system became more abstract, more complex, and more vulnerable. Banks were now creating symbolic value, promises, far exceeding their tangible assets. The whole thing relied, and still relies, heavily on collective trust and belief.
If everyone lost faith and demanded the underlying asset,
The system collapses.
Yeah.
It highlights that money's power isn't just physical, it's deeply psychological, a shared agreement.
and the source connects this symbolic idea even further back, right, to pre-money societies.
Yeah, there's a fascinating point about how, even in some tribal societies, payments for things like a death weren't about direct value exchange. They were symbolic representations of a debt that could never truly be repaid, a social obligation.
So money always had this symbolic weight, beyond just barter.
It seems so. Its power grew through that collective belief, that shared meaning. It only became absolutely central, the source argues, with the rise of large-scale trade networks that required such a flexible symbolic system. And that system, as we've seen, became an incredible mechanism of power.
Wow. Okay, what a journey today, seriously. From Kant making us question reality itself,
The idea that our minds build our world.
to the idea that history might be deliberately shaped by power,
That secret history.
and landing on money, not as just coins and notes, but as this system of belief, credit, and maybe even creation out of nothing.
It ties it all together.
So the key takeaways from our sources today for you listening.
Yeah.
Reality isn't just out there, it's constructed. Understand that.
And to find truth, you need to build models and test them rigorously. Be critical.
History needs that critical eye, too. Always ask who benefits from a particular narrative. Look for the power structures.
And finally, money. It's way more than meets the eye. It's a fundamental tool of power, often generated through belief in lending, not just dug out of the ground.
It really reframes so much.
It does. And maybe here's a final thought to leave with everyone. If reality is shaped by imagination, by our collective beliefs, and if money, this incredibly powerful tool, is also built on that foundation of belief and credit,
Yeah.
what does that really imply about the systems we live in? And maybe more importantly, how could we, collectively or individually, choose to imagine things differently? What power do we actually have if belief itself is so fundamental?
That's a powerful question to ponder. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive today.
Thanks for listening.
Keep questioning, keep exploring. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.